In a wooded parkland in the northwest corner of Canton, Ohio, off Interstate 77, stands a memorial to America's most exciting sport, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. This nationally acclaimed museum is situated not far from the site where the National Football League was founded in 1920 and where the Canton Bulldogs were crowned the NFL champions in 1922 and 23. The Pro Football Hall of Fame is filled with dynamic and entertaining exhibitions that recapture every phase of pro football's almost 100-year-old history and at the same time pays homage to the great players, coaches, and contributors who have been accorded membership into the Hall. Each year, a new class is inducted, giving them a permanent place in the game's history. Such was the case on August 4th of 1990 when 7 new members were officially presented. If you were there, it will be an emotional reminder of the occasion. If you were not, the experience here may prompt you to visit the museum and its annual induction ceremony at some future date. Bringing the total membership in the hall to 155 are tackle for the San Francisco 49ers, Bob St. Clair. Defensive tackle for the Kansas City Chiefs, Buck Buchanan. Quarterback for the Miami Dolphins, Bob Griese. Running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers, Franco Harris. Linebacker from the Baltimore Colts, Green Bay Packers, and Oakland LA Raiders, Ted Hendricks. Linebacker from the Pittsburgh Steelers, Jack Lambert. Coach of the Dallas Cowboys, Tom Landry.
We give you a Hall of Fame welcome to the thousands of great football fans gathered here at the Hall of Fame and to the thousands listening at home. 7 greats of the gridiron being enshrined today, this our 28th annual enshrinement ceremony. To greet this year's class of enshrinees as they are introduced, I would like to introduce to you the Commissioner of the National Football League, Paul Tagliabue. And the Chairman of the Board of the Pro Football Hall of Fame's Board of Trustees, Stu Wilkins. Now let's meet this year's class of enshrinees. You folks know all about that $1 million backfield of the San Francisco 49ers of Tittle, Perry, Johnson, and McElhenney, all members of this Hall of Fame. This man helped them to get here. As an offensive tackle, he had brute power, destructive blocking ability, and he could run. Sam Huff said he was the finest offensive lineman I played against. He was a Pro Bowl starter 5 times. Here is Bob St. Clair. This man was the #1 draft choice of the Dallas Texans in 1963. During his 13-year career in the NFL, he was recognized as one of the premier defensive tackles. At 6'7", 287 pounds, he became the prototype for future defensive linemen in the pros. He played a major part of the Kansas City Chiefs' win in Super Bowl IV, 8 times selected to play in the AFL All-Star Game or the Pro Bowl. Please welcome Buck Buchanan. During the 1970s, the Miami Dolphins won 5 Eastern Championships, 3 AFC titles, and Super Bowls 7 and 8. From 1971 to 74, the Dolphins were 43, 8 and 1 with our next inductee at the controls. A 2-time All-American at Purdue. He was the 4th player taken in the 1967 draft. He was the NFL Player of the Year in 1971 and 1977. He played in 2 AFL All-Star games, 6 Pro Bowls. Welcome, Bob Griese. In 1972, this team needed a big play running back, and they found him a first-round draft choice out of Penn State. His career stats are awesome. He rushed for over 12,000 yards, 91 touchdowns, caught passes for 9 more TDs, and is only one of 6 players to score 100 or more touchdowns. He had 8 1,000-yard seasons, and he held or shared 24 NFL records at the time of his retirement, being inducted in his first year of eligibility. Welcome, Franco Harris. Our next inductee, a 3-time All-American at Miami of Florida. At 6'7", 215 pounds, the pros really weren't sure where to play him, but he ended up as a linebacker, a great linebacker. He was allowed to freelance on defense, blitz when he felt like it. He created havoc for the opposing offenses. He was selected to play in the Pro Bowl 8 times, durable, playing in 215 straight regular season games. Here is Ted Hendricks. Our next inductee played in 9 straight Pro Bowls, more than any other player of his era. Many felt he was the catalyst that turned that Pittsburgh Steelers defense into a juggernaut. The Steelers won an unprecedented 4 Super Bowls in his first 6 years. He was the NFL Defensive Player of the Year, both in '76 and 1979, being inducted in his first year of eligibility. Welcome, Jack Lambert. Our next inductee was named the head coach of the new Dallas Cowboys franchise in 1960. Those Cowboys had an exceptional string of 20 straight winning seasons from 1966 to 1985 and has never been equaled. During that period, his teams won 13 divisional championships, 5 NFC titles, played in 5 Super Bowls, winning 2 of those. He also was one of the great technical innovators of the game. Welcome, Tom Landry. To honor this great country of ours, would you please join with Marge Gentler in the singing of our national anthem?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag
ladies and gentlemen, to give all of you a big Canton welcome, here's the mayor of this fine city, Sam Persis.
Good morning, and good morning to Football America. And it has been the practice over the past several years, a special Canton welcome to the city of Pittsburgh. This is the moment this entire weekend is for. 7 gridiron greats to be immortalized in these hallowed halls, and we are here to share it with them. Thank you.
It is my pleasure to now introduce to you a man making his first appearance at these ceremonies as the Commissioner of the National Football League. Welcome, Mr. Paul Tagliabue.
Good morning. I look at this sign over here, it says, "Thanks for the memories." All of us go through life, and we can't do it without having dreams and memories. And today we come here to say congratulations to 7 of the ultimate football players and to share with them their dreams and their memories. They dreamed of greatness, and they achieved it. And as a result of that, they leave all of us with memories. They leave the Hall of Fame as the repository of the memories. They have their own memories. They leave the National Football League with memories. They leave their cities, Oakland, Dallas, Miami, San Francisco, Kansas City, with tremendous memories. But they did it because they dreamed, and I congratulate the 7 of them today. I also thank the people of Canton, the Hall of Fame, the people of Ohio, and the fans of America for supporting the league, and I hope you have a fabulous weekend. Thank you.
Dave Baronio, who has covered sports of every kind in Northern California for more than 40 years, became a good friend of a big offensive tackle who played for the 49ers in the 1950s and 1960s. Today, he has the pleasure of presenting that good friend, Bob St. Clair, for Hall of Fame membership. Mr. Dave Baronio.
Honorees and all-time heroes, you wonderful football fans, and you special people from Pittsburgh. Just so I don't throw this game into extra time, causing a backup with an enshrinement class of 7, I'll clock myself to keep time for the Steelers specials. In 50 years plus, actually, of sports writing, covering from Pop Warner to high school to colleges and to pros, this is the proudest moment I've ever enjoyed, and I share the honor of being a presenter with my fellow sports writers across the country, from my town of Vacaville across to Bangor, Maine. All you sports writers, would you hold your hands up here so I can see you? We love you. It's really a problem to be serious about Bob St. Clair. How can you be serious about a guy who eats raw meat and tested for the role of Tarzan? Bob was tested by Paramount for the role of Tarzan, and this is away from football, while he was playing. He'd have won the role, but they couldn't get a rope to hold him. At it's nearly 7 feet. The cheetah kept biting him, and when he'd say, "Me Tarzan, you Jane," he'd knock her out of the tree. He never got along with the chimp anyway. He said the chimp had bad breath like a defensive lineman. But Bob played in the days without a face mask, as you'll soon see. Actually, he was 6'10" when he started. They had the form-fitting helmets, and he shrunk with the beatings that he took. But I think with the dedication, the zeal, the intensity of his play, he gave better than he took, as proved here by his position today as an enshrinee. Bob was a third-round draft choice of the San Francisco 49ers in 1953. He had played dynamic football at the University of San Francisco and Tulsa. The 1951 USF football team was undefeated, untied, and uninvited. From that one team, 9 of those players went on to play National Football League football. 4 of them are now in the Hall of Fame. Gino Marchetti, Ollie Matson, Bob St. Clair, and the 4th being the then Public Relations Director, Pete Rozelle, for USF. Bob played 11 seasons for the San Francisco 49ers, 3 times All-Pro, 5 times in the Pro Bowl. There wasn't anything he couldn't do. He played on the special teams. He played in defensive line play inside the 20. When he came to the team, they threw him in immediately against Leo Nomellini. Leo now is one of the 6 San Franciscans off of 1 unit in the Hall of Fame. Bob took Leo Nomellini head on and immediately became a starter. Off of that one squad with Frankie Albert's team, in the Hall of Fame with Leo Nomellini, the $1 million backfield is Joe Perry, Hugh McElhaney, Y.A. Tittle, John Henry Johnson, all off one ball club. Bob set high standards for himself and those who followed him. Only 3 tackles performed over a period of 35 years. Bob was followed by Cass Banaszak and Keith Fondhorst for 15 years, starting to get tongue-tied. The 49ers joined in 1946 in the AFL, came into the NFL, and Bob was an integral part. And I present him today for your attention into the Pro Football Hall of Fame, the geek, the one and only. Come on, Robert. Bob St. Clair, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. When I was starting to think of what I should say about how I feel being inducted in football's Hall of Fame, I said to myself, Bob, what you have to do is be humble, gracious, dignified, and make a sophisticated appearance. I think the best way I can to describe my feeling right now is if you relate to the movie Rocky, and you remember Sylvester Stallone running, training in the streets of Philadelphia, and the music was building up, and he came to the federal steps, and he sprinted up those federal steps. The music reached the crescendo, and he raised his hands up high and said, I made it. That's the way I feel. Yeah. Aha. I think the only other time in my life that I've had such a rush is in the birth of my first child, Lynn, who is here today, when I was 18 years old. And you know, when you're 18 years old and you have a child, how important it is. And I'm certainly not trying to slight my other 5 children who are also here today, Gary and Gail and Greg and Jill and Renee. But it was that first time and that first rush that I was so excited as I am here today. My wife is also here, Marcia, and my in-laws, I know, are back in Santa Rosa, California, at our family restaurant, Lena's, watching me on television and experiencing with me the excitement of this moment. The only disappointment that I have is that my mother, who was 83 years old, was not able to make it. She had surgery just recently. She had planned to be here. My sister Rosemary is here, who was taking her. But I know, Mom, you're back in Daly City, California, and you're watching this, and we know you're here in spirit. God bless you. You know, this all started when I was 9 years old. I was a Cub Scout, and I was a flag bearer in the East-West game out in San Francisco at Kezar Stadium. And I can remember looking up, being 9 years old, and seeing these giant football players and saying to myself, oh boy, someday would I love to be able to play football and be like these giant athletes. Well, needless to say, I played 188 games in that stadium and hold the record today. And I think I grew a little bit bigger than most of those college athletes. I can remember when I was in high school, I got the best advice from my football coach. He told me, Bob, you're 5'9", you weigh 160 pounds, you're 15 years old, you're not big enough to make this high school football team. My advice to you is go home and grow a little. Damn it, I did exactly what he said. I grew 6 inches in 1 year and put on 60 pounds. From Polytechnic High School, as Dave indicated, I went on to the University of San Francisco and played with outstanding football players. 2 are in the Hall of Fame here, Gino Marchetti and Ollie Matson. And I am so proud to have been a part of that team with Joe Scudero and Dickie Stanfeld, the coach of the Bears, defensive coach, who played so many years with the Detroit Lions. He's going to be here today. I went to Tulsa University after USF for 1 year, and I think I was the first holdout in the NFL. My first contract in 1953, they offered me $5,500. That's for the whole year, and I held out for $6,000 for 1 week. My 12 years with the Niners were so great. They weren't great in the sense of we won championships, but they were great because of the fact that I was able to play with such great football players, my teammates. who I dearly love and respect today. Hugh McElhaney, the king. As a lineman, you know, as an offensive lineman, you get very little credit. The satisfaction we have when we play as linemen, offensive linemen, is to watch a back like Hugh McElhaney or lead you around the end and flatten that DB and get up and watch you go all the way for a touchdown. Or Joe Perry slashing through the line after you flatten the middle linebacker. Or John Henry Johnson, who was very difficult to block for, because every time you knocked someone down, he wanted a piece of the action and he'd hit into you too. That's what an offensive lineman gets out of the game. One of the real true people that I respect so much that have helped me be here today was a fellow teammate of mine, a defensive end for so many years with the 49ers. His name was Dan Kolkiko. Dan's work ethic was very simple. He had one speed, and that was full speed. And this was during practice. And even though I would get extremely upset, he made me play to my capabilities at all times during practice. So when Sunday came along in the game, it made it so much easier for me to play. And because of Dan, I feel I was a much better football player. And Dan is sitting here. Thank you very much, Dan. We had so much camaraderie in the days when I played, and it's exemplified today by the organization, the NFL alumni, which is caring for kids that we all belong to, the NFLPA, which is the National Football Players Association, concerned about players present and past. The president of that organization, the director, Gene Upshaw, is here. The president of the NFL in my chapter is here, plus the director, Bruce Bosley and Jerry Mertens. And this is what it's all about. I only hope today's athletes are experiencing the same closeness on and off the field as we did in my era. Because if they're not, they're missing what the game of football is all about. I want to thank you very much, all of you, for making my day in the sun so memorable. Thank you.
Stram was the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs for 12 of the 13 years of Buck Buchanan's pro football career. And here to present that outstanding defensive tackle for Enshrinement is that longtime coach. Welcome, Hank Stram.
In 1963, I saw Buck Buchanan for the very first time, and I was stunned. He was a giant among men, 6'7", and weighed 295 pounds, and yet with all that bulk, he could still run the 40 in 4.9, and that's with 2 goats under his arms. Don Klosterman, our talent scout, brought Buck to our training facility in Dallas, and he made an indelible impression. Buck was a superlative athlete who played football and basketball at Parker High School in Birmingham, Alabama. He was a natural leader who was voted the team captain in both sports. But as a freshman at Grambling, Buchanan played both basketball and football, but after his freshman year, he decided to give up basketball so he could spend all of his time concentrating on football. And after a sensational career as a defensive and offensive tackle, his college coach, Eddie Robinson, the winningest coach in the history of college football, characterized Buck as the finest tackle he had ever seen. Little wonder that Buck was first player taken in the 1963 AFL draft and later became the prototype for future professional defensive linemen. Buck was very proud of being drafted in the first round, and he said because he was their first player from a black school to be accorded such status. It said a lot for the Gramblings, the Prairie Views, and all the other black colleges. He felt an unstinting loyalty for Grambling that he later extended to the Kansas City Chiefs and for the people of Kansas City. Buck had it all. He had size, he had speed, he had quickness, and he had strength combined with the ability to lead by example. He was a consummate team player who was infused with a great attitude. It didn't take long for Buck to earn front-page success as the premier defensive lineman in the AFL. He played both defensive end and tackle as a rookie, and in 1964, he became our regular right tackle and was named to his first AFL All-Star game following that season. It was the first of 8 consecutive All-Star and NFL Pro Bowl appearances, and during this time, Buck was not only our co-captain, but was picked by his teammates as the Chiefs' most valuable player in 1965 and 1967. He was exceptionally strong against the run and had the added dimension of being an excellent up-the-field pass rusher. To highlight this point, he batted down 16 passes at or behind the line of scrimmage in 1967. By this time, Buck had become such a dominant force that my good friend Al Davis was compelled to find someone with the kind of size and strength necessary to neutralize Buck. Consequently, the Raiders drafted Gene Upshaw in the opening round of the first AFL-NFL draft in 1967. And this began one of the most storied one-on-one rivalries in all of AFL history. Gene summed up his respect for Buck this way: I was big, but Buck was bigger and stronger. It was hard to believe that someone so big could be so quick. It was like trying to block a ghost. For the most part, I enjoyed playing against other guys, but when I played against Buchanan, I couldn't sleep the night before. And Gene, after watching all those films we watched, it was obvious that you spend more time holding Buck than you did your wife. In addition to his ability to rush the passer, Buck was gifted with exceptional lateral speed that enabled him to run people down from sideline to sideline. And the truly amazing thing about Buchanan was that we seldom saw him on the ground. When opposing teams drew up a game plan against our defense, Buck was not an X and he was not an O. He was an O and he was an X. He was an ox. He was number 86, and opposing blockers wanted to know where he was at all times. He made teams worry about personnel and not about schemes or packages. They were looking for a way to double-team Buck from the moment he got off the plane. Buck was also mentally tough and an incredibly durable athlete who missed just one game in 13 years. He also had fierce pride and a warrior's attitude. The bigger the game, the better he performed. He was always at his best when we needed him the most. When we won it all in 1969, the final season of the AFL, Buck was a primary force in our great defense that held the Jets and the Raiders and the Vikings to fewer than 100 yards rushing. At the same time, Buck helped to keep pass rush that produced 9 sacks and 10 interceptions. He was an integral part of our success story and contributed greatly to our championships. in '66 and '69, and the appearance in Super Bowl I and the Super Bowl championship in 1970. He helped us become the winningest team in the history of the American Football League and one of the winningest teams in all of pro football. We were only 4 games away from being the winningest team over a 15-year span of time. He helped us win every big game there was to win. Because of this outstanding career, it is especially fitting that Buck is the first AFL defensive lineman to be enshrined in Canton. He joins Bob Lilly, Joe Green, and fellow Grambling star Willie Davis as the only defensive lineman in the history of pro football to earn both a Super Bowl ring and also a Hall of Fame ring. His mother, father, family, wife Georgia joined Buck in this unforgettable Hall of Fame celebration. They, along with all the chiefs, the players, the coaches, and the fans of Kansas City and around the country, are very proud of your much-deserved recognition, Buck. I thank you for the honor and privilege of presenting you into the Hall of Fame, where you join not only your great teammates Bobby Bell, Willie Lanier, and Lenny Dawson, but also the founder of the American Football League, Lamar Hunt. Congratulations, Buck.
Thank you very much, Hank, for such an eloquent presentation. Of course, all those great things Hank recited about me are really true. If you don't believe me, just ask my mother, Fanny. She's here. However, one thing Hank neglected to mention about my career was the profound effect he and others like him had in developing my values and life aspirations. To the many family members, teachers, coaches, fellow athletes, and friends who in some way have inspired me through my life, your help was very much appreciated, and I thank you for making this moment a reality. When it was announced back in January that I had been selected for induction to Pro Football Hall of Fame, I was attending a board meeting of the Black Chamber of Commerce of Greater Kansas City. Rick Gosling of the Kansas City Star, who was so supportive, called Randy Kovich in Kansas City to inform him of my selection. Randy and Pete Elliott, the director of the Hall of Fame, called me at home. My wife, Georgia, told them I was en route to the chamber office and provided them with a number to reach me in my car. Wouldn't you know it, I didn't drive my car that morning. So let me apologize to both Randy and Pete for the many calls they made to my garage last January. To be sure, my election to the Hall of Fame left me feeling extremely proud to be the first AFL defensive lineman to be enshrined in Canton. Immediately after learning of my selection, I thought of the men of great accomplishment who had played this sport we love so much. I also thought about those players, teammates, and opponents alike who had encouraged and challenged me to not only be a very well-rounded athlete, but also a good and decent human being. I'm especially honored to have played against all 4 of the AFL Hall of Fame offensive linemen. It was Ron Mix of the Chargers, who introduced me to the AFL. And then it was my turn to do the same for my good friend, Gene Upshaw. What a privilege it was to battle number 63. The same was true of playing against Jim Otto and Art Shell. As I replay my life in sports, would have to start with my brother Slim, who in his first attempt at high school basketball was ridiculed by his classmates. This particular incident was a turning point in my desire to excel in athletics. Then there was Coach Wells, my basketball coach at Parker High in Birmingham, who instilled that I learned the fundamentals of the sport as well as the importance of teamwork. And would you believe that I started playing football because my neighbor, Willie Minute, needed someone to walk home with after practice. When I reflect back, I think of Major Brown, my high school football coach, who was a strict disciplinarian, as well as my uncle Glennon Threet, who was a positive role model as a teacher and as a coach. It was he who wrote the letter to Coach Robinson at Grambling State University about me, insisting that Coach Robinson visit with me about his football program. That letter got me to Grambling, where I met two very important people in my life today. The first is Bessie Mae McKinney, who was one of my teachers, as well as a great friend and a mother away from home. The other was the all-time winningest coach in college football history, Coach Robinson. What can I say? What can I say about this man that hasn't already been written or said? It is especially fitting that my enshrinement take place in this, the golden anniversary season for Coach Robinson. Coach Robinson taught me love and dedication for my school and my fellow man. This, of course, can be witnessed by two other Hall of Famers from Grambling, Willie Davis and my classmate, Willie Brown, with whom I still share a warm relationship with today. From Eddie Robinson to Hank Stram, luck was definitely on my side. I'd like to thank Lamar for his foresight in establishing the AFL, as well as the mentor, Hank Stram, for the chance to contribute to the success of the AFL winningest team. Again, it was such a privilege to wear that 10-year patch in the Super Bowl win of the Vikings that gave the AFL its final victory against the other league. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I'm at the very top of the ladder in my profession, but I'm not without support. At this time, I want to thank the many friends from Kansas City who traveled here to see this honor bestowed upon me. The Monday Night Footballers, the Black Chamber of Commerce, my Kansas City teammates, Otis Taylor, who I think is the greatest receiver of all times, Jan Steneru, who I think is the greatest kicker of all times, Willie Lanier, Bobby Bell, Lynn Dawson, and many thanks to Lamar and Norma Hunt, Jack and Martha Stetman, Don Klosterman, the entire Chiefs organization, the Kansas City community, and of course, those close friends and relatives here today. I would like to express my thanks to another teammate and current business associate, Ed Lothamer, and the same is true of Bert Listman. Of course, it's a great feeling to be able to share this moment with my loved ones in the Buchanan family. My two wonderful sons, Eric and Dwayne, and my lovely daughter, Nicole, my two beautiful sisters, Betty and Evelyn, and their families, and my brother Douglas, who is unable to be with us today. Finally, I'm here as a direct result of my mother and father's love for each other. Fannie Mae, my mother, in my opinion, is without a doubt the greatest woman to ever live. And Wallace, my father, continued to be the stabilizer of the Buchanan clan. Athletes sometimes think they no longer need constant coaching when there's a curtain call for their career. I'm here to tell you this is untrue. Without the abiding faith and confidence in my ability provided by my wife, Georgia, it would be difficult to live within the shadows of my football career. To Georgia, the new coach on the scene, I want to say, stay on the job, because as a team, we are unbeatable. My coach, Georgia, is sending me the signal to stop. So in closing, I would like this bronze bust to serve as a greater purpose than a testimony to my football career. I sincerely hope this will stand as a symbol of inspiration for all young people where hard work and honest effort can take you. Being consistent in your work and never quitting until you reach the finish line will bring you the desired results. Today, I am thankful I am able to cross the finish line. To the young people of all walks of life, may I say, never give up your hopes and dreams of success. Thank you very much, and may God bless you.
During the 1970s, when the Dolphins were big winners, Coach Don Shula's Charges were guided on the field by a superb quarterback, Bob Griese. Shula still the Dolphins head coach, and he is here today to present that brilliant quarterback for Enshrinement. Welcome, Don Shula.
If I ever had to define what a winner is, I could do it in just 2 words: Bob Griese. It's no coincidence that Miami enjoyed unprecedented success during Bob's 14 years with the Dolphins. He had great ability, but what set him apart was intelligence and leadership, intangibles that can't be measured statistically, except in the final score. Bob simply didn't know what it meant to lose. He was a thinking man's quarterback, a chess master, moving all of his pieces brilliantly. He was a leader of a classic ball control offense that enabled us to win back-to-back Super Bowls in 1972 and 73 with a combined record of 32-2, 17-0 in 72. The only perfect season in NFL history. With his understanding of the game and his poised leadership, he guided the Dolphins to 9 winning seasons in the 70s. And he won 91 of the 131 games he played for me, a .698 winning percentage. He prepared for each game as intensely as a coach, studying game films all week long. On a road trip, he'd sit there with a yellow pad, diagramming down and distance. He was a genius at calling the right play at the right time. In the double overtime game against Kansas City, he pulled out a play that we hadn't used the whole time. A run to Larry Zonka, our fullback, that gained 30 yards that set up the field goal that helped us get into the playoffs and eventually into the Super Bowl. But that's typical of Bob. Being one of the smartest players I ever coached, he was also one of the most unselfish. I remember when we played the St. Louis Cardinals on Thanksgiving Day in 1977. He threw 6 touchdown passes in a little over 3/4 of play. The record was 7. I said, Bob, you want to go for the record? We had the big lead. He said, no, Coach. He said, let the backup quarterback play because he needs experience in case we need him later on if something happens to me. That's unselfishness. Bob got as much of a thrill out of watching Larry Zonka, Jim Kick, or Mercury Morris run for a touchdown as he did connecting the bomb to Paul Warfield. He knew how to get the most out of a talented team. And one of his finest performances, he used the pass only sparingly. But when we did go to the air, there was no one better, especially in the big games. In our 14-7 win over the Redskins in Super Bowl VII, only 11 out of our 50 plays were passes, but Bob completed 8 of them, 1 for a touchdown, and 1 set up another score. We wouldn't have reached the Super Bowl if it hadn't been for that kind of performance from Bob. In the AFC Championship game against Pittsburgh, we were trailing 10-7 in the 3rd quarter. And Bob replaced Earl Morrill at quarterback, playing only 11 weeks after he had broken his leg. And the first pass he connected was a 52-yarder to Warfield that set up the go-ahead touchdown that gave us the win and put us in the Super Bowl. The next year in 1973, we won our 2nd consecutive World Championship. Bob led relentless ball control drives that resulted in the most dominant overall playoff performance in NFL history. Our average time of possession in those 3 games was 12 minutes more than our opponents, and we outscored them 85-33. In fact, Super Bowl VIII that year, only 7 of our 61 plays from scrimmage were passes, but Bob completed 6 of those 7 to help lead us to a 24-7 domination over the Vikings. During his career, Bob played in 2 AFL All-Star games and 6-time All-Pro Bowl performer. He was the AFC Player of the Year in 1971, and his uniform number was the first ever retired by the Dolphins. He was the 14th quarterback in the NFL history to throw for over 25,000 yards. And he set team records for yardage, completions, and touchdown passes before a shoulder injury forced an early retirement. But I know no matter how impressive his career totals are, to me, and certainly to him, they're only numbers. You can't measure leadership in selfishness and professionalism. But the true championships and the Dolphins' success on the field during his tenure in Miami only pointed to Bob's greatness. My personal admiration for Bob has grown through the years, not only for what he accomplished for me as a player, but also the way he conducts his private life, his devotion to family, his civic and community involvement, and the excellence he now brings to the broadcast booth. He's a role model for everything that's right, not only about professional football, but life itself. Someone who personifies class and dignity on and off the field. I'm proud to present a great player who rightly belongs with all the other winners in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, number 12, Bob Griese.
Coach, I want to thank you for getting these Steeler fans all fired up for me. We had some great games. First of all, I want to thank Don Shula for taking time off from his busy schedule. The Dolphins are at Tampa this morning scrimmaging, and he made the trip up here to present me for the Hall of Fame. You know, I dare say that if Don Shula hadn't have come to the Dolphins in 1970, that the Dolphins would have never played in a championship game and would have never won 2 Super Bowls. Not only that, but I'm the 4th Dolphin to be enshrined into the National Football League Hall of Fame, and I don't think 3 of us would have made it. I know Warfield would have made it, but I'm not so sure about Langer, Zonk, and myself. But behind every successful man, and Shula is certainly that, there is a great woman, and there is no question that this is true in the Shula family. Not only do they have 5 great kids, but Dorothy Shula is what makes that family tick. Take my word for it. You know, my son is sitting down here, my 3 sons, but the youngest one is the wisest one. I think since he and I are home together now, he kind of needles me like I needle him. And he often told me that one of the things I'm remembered for most are my glasses. And my glasses have been in here for 10 years. And he says, Dad, that's as close as you're ever going to get to the Hall of Fame. In your face, Brian. You know, so we've had a few press conferences this week. One of the questions was, did you and Shula ever have any problems? Did you ever have any disagreements? Well, we had a few, but the biggest one and the most, shall I say, the visual one, I guess, is when I was out there wearing the glasses toward the end of my career, cleaning off my glasses behind the huddle, and I could see the 30-second clock winding down. I knew how much time I had, and I was just polishing them up because they'd get sweat or they'd fog up or maybe a little mist in the rain or something, and Sheila would be over there on the sideline. Bob, hurry up, hurry up. Well, I knew how much time I had, and besides that, if it ever got real bad, I knew what I could do, because if it ever started raining, I could put these on and see. Now it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to take. Now if it stopped, you could always stop it from going, you know. But it's kind of hard to put both hands underneath the quarterbacks, under the center, and get the ball. But I always had those in reserve, just in case. He's a great guy, and I appreciate him coming up. You know, I'm honored and humbled by all of this. I was a guy that really learned from his mistakes. You know, I would go back and watch the film, and I would see it with all the team, but then I'd take it home, and I'd watch my mistakes and the things that I was thinking about in the ball game, and I didn't check to, and I would learn from my mistakes. And just looking at some of these guys behind me, well, first of all, for the 7 of us that are going in, I see a lot of my mistakes back here. I see Buck Buchanan. I think half of his sacks were right here. And then the stork, Ted Hendricks. Ted used to love to play against the Dolphins. And Jack Lambert, you know. You know, I think I helped these guys get in here. And then you look further back, and you look back in the back there, looking for the golden domes with the guy with the glasses. You see a guy named Ray Nitschke, a great linebacker. And, you know, he epitomizes the middle linebackers that the way they play, and I played against. You had, I remember a guy named Dick Butkus. His bust is in here. I remember playing against him my rookie year. I was coming up to the line of scrimmage. He was so intimidating, I lined up behind my right guard, Larry Little. Larry didn't know who I was. He jumped about 6 feet in the air. He said, "What you doing, rookie?" And then Alan Page is in here. And I remember Alan Page and playing against the Vikings in Super Bowl 8, I believe it was, coming to the line of scrimmage and forgetting the snap count. They always say I was the thinking man's quarterback. I couldn't find who to line up behind, and I couldn't remember the snap count half the time. But I thought about asking Jim Langer, the Hall of Famer, but something in my mind said no, then all those Vikings would know. And I must have lost my senses, because I said, turn around and ask Old Reliable, number 39. Wrong. Bad information. And then I see Tom Landry and the Dallas Cowboys, and Bob Lilly is here. And I remember playing the Dallas Cowboys in Super Bowl VI. And the only Super Bowl record I still hold is the longest sack by a quarterback in a Super Bowl game, 29 yards. Now, I got to talk to my son Brian here again, because every time they see that on the highlights, they think that only Lilly was chasing me, and I keep telling them there was more. I talked to Lilly, and Lilly said there was 2 other defensive linemen besides him. I could have outrun him. So we need to get you guys together. I want to thank my family and my friends for coming. I have over 115 people, not family, but friends that came from Miami. And I appreciate all of you coming up and taking the time out of your schedules to come here. I want to thank my mother and my late wife, Judy. Mother thought that I should be in here the day I hung up the helmet, and Judy wasn't far behind her. Of course, they thought with their hearts and not with their heads. But Ida was always there washing the socks when I was playing Little League Baseball and making sure she was at our games and being the fan and being the taxi cab, getting us back and forth. And Judy always made the house an area where we could get things done, and I never had to worry about raising the kids on Wednesday and Thursday nights when I brought films home. The dinner was always there, and she made it very comfortable for me to get the work done that I needed to. And I know she's having a good time up there in heaven with my father, looking down with a big smile on this ceremony today. I grew up in Evansville, Indiana, and I just want to thank the people from Evansville for making it an environment to which I could go out and play athletics. When my dad died when I was 10, I turned to athletics and sports, and the athletics was there. The coaches were there. The parks and recreations, the fields were there. We went out and participated. My high school coach, Ken Kudre, is here, and Mike Minton and Rick Kingston, a couple of the players that I played with are here, and I appreciate you guys coming over. I went on to Purdue. I went on to Purdue University, and that's when I really learned how to throw the football. Now, that's not taking anything away from my high school coach, Kudre, but he was a defensive lineman, and he didn't know much about throwing. Bob DeMoss, who is here today, was my quarterback coach and really taught me how to throw the football. I can remember him bringing Cecil Isabel over and working on the mechanics of throwing. I was a pitcher. I used to throw sidearm, but he got me straightened out. Jack Molenkoff, the head coach at Purdue, was the finest man as you'd ever want to meet. Fred Hovde was the president at that time, and Red Mackey was the athletic director, and I cannot think of a better trifecta than those three, Hovde, Mackey, and Molenkoff, to run a university. They gave me a scholarship and gave me the opportunity to get educated and go on with my life, and I'm very thankful to Purdue and Bob DeMoss for being here today. And then after, I never thought that, I never dreamt that I would be here. I never dreamt that I would even go to college, let alone play professional football. When I was drafted by the Dolphins in the first round by Joe Thomas, Joe Robbie gave me the opportunity to play in Miami. I got along very well with Joe, and I just know that he's very proud also to have another one of his players going into the Hall. George Wilson was the first head coach, and I appreciate the things that he did for me. But the people that were really great for me in Miami were the fans. I mean, I was always kind of quiet and introverted and shy. I never was really very outgoing. I never threw my arms up in the air when we scored touchdowns and all of that. But I appreciate the support that all the fans in Miami gave me throughout the years. And I'm happy for them today, because a team that goes 3 years in a row in the Super Bowl, wins 2 championships, and one of those teams goes undefeated. The fans of Miami deserve to have some players in the Hall of Fame, and I'm honored to be representing those fans of Miami today. I'm wrapping up. I was never a great talent. I mean, I couldn't carry anybody by myself. I wasn't a guy like a Roger Staubach or a Terry Bradshaw. I needed help. And I got a lot of help in Miami. I'm the first to admit that give me some good players around me, and I can do some stuff that may give you some problems defensively. Jim Langer, I've talked about, was our center. Larry Little, one guard, and Bob Kuchenberg, Ed Newman were the other guards that played. Norm Evans, who is here today. Wayne Moore, Doug Cruzan. Our tight end, Marv Fleming, and Jim Mandich. We had a great receiver in Paul Warfield. Howard Twilley was there, Nat Moore, and Marlon Briscoe. In the backfield, we had Zonka, who was great. And also Norm Bulash. When we wanted to throw, we got Zonka the hell out of there. Norm came in. Mercury Morris, Jim Kick, and Earl Morrow. What a great guy Earl was to be with. In closing, if there's any lesson to be learned from me going into the NFL Hall of Fame, it's to the young people, and that is, you don't have to be the biggest or the strongest or the fastest or the quickest or the prettiest to be successful. As long as you have desire and determination, you have heart, you have some intelligence, and you have some persistence, and you're consistent, and yes, maybe if you're stubborn, you can be successful and be successful in life. Thank you all very much, and God bless.
For 9 seasons during the Super Bowl years, Lynn Swann, a big play pass-catching threat. His teammate Franco Harris excelling as a superstar rusher. Swann will now present his good friend and teammate Franco Harris for induction. Welcome, Lynn Swann.
Thank you. All of the fans from Pittsburgh said someday I'd make it to the Hall of Fame. I guess maybe I'm halfway here. To the Mayor of Canton, Commissioner Tagliabue, the members of the Hall of Fame, I am very honored that Franco would ask me to present him this afternoon. In the beginning, for the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were a tough, hard-nosed, aggressive, physical, punishing football team that made everybody pay a price. But in the beginning, they didn't win championships. They didn't make it to the playoffs. Not until 1972, when the Steelers drafted Franco Harris from Penn State. The Steelers were a playoff team. Chuck Noll wanted to run the football. He believed in the run. He believed in defense. When he drafted Joe Green, he had that defense. When he drafted Lambert, he helped that defense. When he drafted Franco Harris, he gave the offense heart, he gave it discipline, he gave it desire, he gave it the ability to win a championship in Pittsburgh. Franco was never a man who gave you a lot of conversation. I think all these players who played on defense against Franco will tell you that when they hit Franco, when they brought him down, it was never an easy task, but Franco always got up, said thank you. If one of the defensive players was still lying down, he helped them up, went back to the huddle, and was ready to run through them again without conversation. He gave us pride by his work ethic. Every day at practice, Franco would take the handoff. He'd run through the middle of the line, and he'd run down the field 40 yards and come back to the huddle for the next play. He'd go to the outside. He'd run down the field 40 yards. Nobody was tackling him. He was just making sure that when his teammates gave him the opportunity to run the football, when they opened a hole, when he got in the game on Sunday and they gave him the opportunity, that Franco was prepared to make the most of it. And there were lines of defense in Cleveland, in Miami, in Oakland, Kansas City, any team you name, that saw the back of Franco Harris's jersey all too often. Franco was my roommate for 8 years in hotels the night before football games. We were friends. I lived with this man and I watched the intensity. I would talk to him at night as he told me how badly he wanted this championship game, how he needed this championship game. And when he put that helmet on and he was pacing in the locker room, walking back and forth, gathering all of his forces together to take on the opponent, everybody got charged from that. Everybody saw the intensity in Franco Harris, and everybody knew if we had the chance to score, we had to do it, because Franco was there leading the way. We won 4 Super Bowls on the shoulders and the legs of Franco Harris. When Terry Bradshaw went down in the 1976 season, Franco gained over 1,000 yards along with Rocky Blair. Our defense stopped people. We could not be stopped. I am a wide receiver. I'm almost embarrassed to have to admit the Steelers could win just on Franco's legs and not on catching the football. He gave us so many opportunities. Our first Super Bowl, Franco broke the rushing record and was the MVP. Our second Super Bowl, he kept the Dallas defense honest so that we could win another Super Bowl. Super Bowl 13, when Hollywood Henderson thought he had the answer and thought he had the right conversation, it was Franco Harris that ran right by him. In our last Super Bowl against the Rams, one of the toughest games we had to play, they had the lead, we took it back. They had the lead, we took it back. It was Franco Harris that broke through the line and put us ahead to stay. And it was Jack Lambert to make sure we stayed there. It is with great pride and honor that I am able to present to you for induction into Hall of Fame, class of 1990, my friend, your number 32, and forever the immaculate Franco Harris.
Oh, it feels wonderful. It's been a long time. It feels wonderful. First of all, I would like to congratulate my fellow inductees, Tom Landry, Jack Lambert, Ted Hendricks, Bob Griese, Buck Buchanan, Bob St. Clair. It's a real honor for me to be a member of your class. And I'd like to thank you, Lynn Swan, and I look forward to the day that you will be immortalized. Talking about thanking people, it all started in a town back in New Jersey called Mount Holly. And Mount Holly here, they're here. It was great growing up there. You really made it special, and you really helped in my development. My head football coach, Bill Gordon, thank you. Stu Murray, my head basketball coach, thank you. Mr. Stella, my head baseball coach, thank you. You all made it very special. And even Gladys Loudon is here, my English teacher. But I'm sure I'll hear from her after this speech. She was always that way. Penn State, what can you say about Penn State? Thank you, Penn State. See my roommate Gary Gray is over here. I know Eric Bass is here. My teammate Lydell Mitchell is in here. My other teammate Charlie Pittman. Boy, thanks for coming. Thanks Joe Paterno, George Welsh, all my coaches at Penn State. It was great. And what really makes this day very special is to share it with family. Today I'm able to share with my family right here. With Dana, my son Doc, right here. Stand up, Doc. Dana. Good. Okay. Her mother Beth. My mother Gina. At first she never understood football, now she loves it. Huh? Stand up, Mom. My mother Gina. And it's just bad that, my father's not here to enjoy it with us. But I know he's smiling from up there, and he's enjoying this day. And all my brothers and sisters, there's too many of them to name, believe me. My nephews, nieces, it's great to have you all here, friends. Thank you for coming. Thank you. Well, Steeler fans, oh, I know you're out there. I know you're out there. I just want to get it over with because I know back in 1984 I had to leave the Steelers, but I want you to know that now I'm back. Yes, I'm back. And I'm thrilled and honored to join my teammates once again, but this time to join them as a member of the Pro Football Hall of Fame. It all started with the induction of Joe Green, a great leader, and one who anchored one of the greatest defensive lines in pro football history with the white, Ernie Holmes, L.C. Greenwood, Banaszak, Furness. Oh, it was great. Joe was soon joined by Jack Ham. What can you say about Jack Ham except that he's the perfect linebacker who led a core of linebackers that was second to none, with guys like Andy Russell and Jack Lambert, Robin Cole, Dirt Winston. It was incredible. Then Mel Blount and Terry Bradshaw were inducted into the Hall of Fame. Mel Blount was the cornerstone of our defensive backfield, with guys like Donnie Shell, Mike Wagner, Glenn Edwards, Ron Johnson, J.T. Thomas. They were incredible. And Bradshaw, who had a will that was second to none. A great quarterback, a great person to play with, and a great ball player to play with. And today, I'm so proud that the beat goes on with Lambert, my teammate, going in today. Thanks, Lammy, for setting the tone for our defense and for teaching me how to run out of bounds by chasing me all the time. As for myself, I still can't believe it. I can't believe it. You know, I was blessed with certain talents, and I tried to use those talents to the best of my abilities. How can I help my team? Could they count on me when it was needed? Then you think, what makes your talents come through? What makes it work? What makes you work? And the answer is to be with the right teammates, and God knows I was with the right teammates. They were great. I was able to achieve goals beyond my wildest dreams because of the people who surrounded me. They brought out the best in me. They made me rise to new heights. They made me a better ball player. And at this time, I can't find a better way than just say thank you to my offensive linemen. When you talk about people getting the job done, doing all the work but getting none of the glory, that's my offensive linemen. Mike Webster, Larry Brown, Sam Davis, John Cole, Moon Mullins, Ted Peterson, Ray Mansfield, Tunch Ilkin, Gordon Gravel, Craig Wolfley, and Steve Corson. We're thinking about you. They were special. And this next guy, I can't say enough about. Thanks, Rocky. Thanks, Rocky. Thanks for leading me here. This guy shows you what playing from the heart is all about. Thanks for being unselfish. And as far as wide receivers go, well, if they would have blocked, I would have gotten 2,000 more yards. But we know that they were the best. They were the best. Lynn Swann and John Stallworth, God, were they the best. Thank you, guys. You made it easy to run. So I talked about the Hall of Famers and talked about my other teammates. You see, during that era, each player brought their own little piece with them to make that wonderful decade happen. Each player had their strengths and their weaknesses, each their own thinking, each their own method. Just each had their own. But then it was amazing because it all came together and it stayed together to forge the greatest team of all time. I'm going to savor this for a minute. My teammates were men of character with a lot of heart and soul. This was the team that I belonged to, a team that will live forever. So I want you to remember living those moments. Do you realize how great those moments were? Did you savor them? God, did you see Lynn Swann in Super Bowl 10? Unbelievable juggling, acrobatic catch, unbelievable. Rocky Blyer in Super Bowl 13, leaping 15 feet, catching that ball in the end zone for a touchdown. Do you remember? Do you remember John Stallworth catching that pass in Super Bowl 14 over his shoulder? That touchdown. It was great. We remember, but while we were playing, we never knew what the future would bring. We were just trying to win the next game. We tried to give you the best we had each week. And by trying to give you the best each week, we never knew at that time that we were building a Steeler wing to the Hall of Fame. We never knew. But now you will always know that you saw the best. You will know because it says so right here in Canton for all to see. The Pittsburgh Steelers are here and here to stay. Remember, yes, we didn't know that at that time that we were building such a dream, but now the results are in. And any way you look at it, it is truly immeasurable and certainly unforgettable. Don't forget us. Good luck. God bless. Thank you very much. Don't forget us.
Al Davis, who is the president and general partner of the Raiders, in 1975 signed a free agent linebacker, Ted Hendricks, who starred for the Raiders for 9 seasons. Today, Al is here to make his 8th presentation, this time for Ted Hendricks. Welcome, Al Davis.
It's always great to be with an audience that loves you, respects you, and like the Pittsburgh Steelers fans, are scared to death of you. The Raiders, and I know this is self-serving, the Raiders have just finished 3 decades of football. The 60s, the 70s, and 80s. And the Raiders, in those 3 decades, have the best records in all of professional sports. Only the Raiders played in the Super Bowls in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s. And Ted Hendricks, the great Ted Hendricks, was one of 3 Raiders, along with the legendary Hall of Famers, Gene Upshaw and Art Shell, who played in all 3 decades. An unbelievable continuity of excellence for 15 years. Ted Hendricks had every endowment, every physical one of the premier linebacker. He could attack the pocket with the greatest of them all, except maybe one, but he could play space with devastating efficiency, intercepting passes anywhere on the field. He was near impossible to block at the point of attack. He was one of the first who could actually dictate to the offense, and on 4th down he could block punts and field goals and extra points like no other player in the history of the game. He was the consummate linebacker, more complete, more all around than anyone else who ever played this great game. His records, as well as his play, proved it, and this 6'7" giant was guided by a killer mentality. I'd like to come back to Ted in a moment. I'd like to tell you that it's a great inspiration to come here again today, 8 times, but it's our field of dreams every year, a field of dreams on which our legendary heroes are always available for instant recall, to set the echoes ringing, bring down the thunder from the sky, and inspire us to dream together and work together for the glory of our game. I've said this before, to come here to this hall, walk through its exhibits, to pay tribute to the old-timers who sit behind me and those who are out in the audience, to this class whom we honor here today and in whose glory we all share, and then the marvelous group of today's presenters, who by themselves stand for honor, courage, loyalty, and character. The Raiders, with all their great tradition, with all their mystique, can never forget Hank Stram and the Kansas City Chiefs, the Big Red, Don Shula and his great Miami Dolphins of the 70s, the legendary battles with Chuck Noll and the Pittsburgh Steelers, Tom Landry and the great Cowboy teams. There's a continuing realization that we all owe them a debt. We all owe each other a debt. And I, for one, and the Raiders, wherever we are, will never forget that debt. I want to say that all of us including the great fans who participate and partake in the vicious struggle to be number one, and who ride on the roller coaster called professional football, dream a lot, and trust a lot in the muses of fate and destiny. We believe that if we live right, work hard, we can dominate, and we may be blessed with miraculous good fortune. It has happened to the Raider organization more than a few times. In fact, I'm here today in Canton because of a miracle named Ted Hendricks that happened to us 15 years ago. He did not come to us in the embryonic stage, but we are convinced that he was always destined to be a Raider. His karma and the fixation of the Raiders in time and place made the matching inevitable. But it was another quality, uniquely American specialness, that enabled Ted to bridge the gap between star and legends. The historians call that mantle individualism, and its wearer is often termed maverick. Ted Hendricks, if there ever was one, was a maverick. A maverick is a person he will defy custom, stand up for principle, and have the courage to do things his way. As a spokesman for the Raider organization and its great players, its great fans, its great office people, I would like to express our gratitude for the many ways in which this magnificent athlete contributed to our success. Thank you, Ted, for having a charismatic presence in every game you played. You were the epitome of just win, baby, just win. Thank you, Ted, for having such an awesome tolerance for pain and none at all for defeat. It took indestructibility to do what this guy did, but he played in 215 consecutive league games, the most ever played by a linebacker in the history of the National Football League. Thank you, Ted, for your commitment to excellence and the will to win you provided as a defensive team captain. Thanks for being such a winning force in every one of the 4 Super Bowls that you played, 3 with the Raiders, and his teams won all 4. And lastly, Ted, from all of us, exemplifying the great Raider spirit and individuality, for carrying that silver and black insignia so proudly and distinctly on your uniform and in your heart. We'll always wish you Godspeed. As you go into the Hall of Fame, we advise you to bring your silver and black helmet with you. There are 6 legends named Shell, Upshaw, Otto, Brown, Bolitnikoff, and Blanda, who have been waiting patiently for a linebacker, and we could do no less than to send in the very best they're in. I want you to think of all the great stadiums, Pittsburgh, Miami, Kansas City, Dallas, and as the crowd roar in my dream stadium becomes thunderous, I can hear the PA announcer saying, from Hialeah, Florida, where he was a high school All-American, from the University of Miami, where he was a college All-American, from the Baltimore Colts, the Green Bay Packers, the Oakland and now Los Angeles, where he was All-Pro with every team. Number 83, in his finest hour, the indestructible Hall of Famer, Ted Hendricks.
Well, I had a short speech planned because I have my Miami Springs my hometown has a party planned for me, and I think I'm going to be late. But I'm not going to let the Pittsburgh Steelers take anything away from me. First of all, I'd like to say that my father can't make it here today, but my father played high school football against Tom Landry. Landry went to Mission High School, and my father was from McAllen High School in Texas. getting on with that, I'm not going to mention my whole family, but I thank them an awful lot for what they've done for me, my friends, my fellow teammates, and my coaches, and one owner of the organization of the Raiders. Now, for Commissioner Tagliabue, I'm not that familiar with you, but I'm very familiar with King Roselle. And I hope he gets the message here, because we've had some great times with him and his office when I came to the Raiders. Now to get on to all the teams that I've played for, there's 4 of them when you think about the different cities, okay? One team takes on 2 cities, okay? I felt like I didn't have a home anywhere, because the Baltimore Colts are now the Indianapolis Colts. And the first team that I played for, the Baltimore Colts, Don Shula was the coach, and he drafted me. I finally made the team then in the old NFL, and as the merger came about, Don left me. We won the Super Bowl the following year, that year that he left, and that was my first Super Bowl appearance, a second-year man in the National Football League. And here I'm playing with the greats on the Baltimore Colt team that had lost the Super Bowl game to the Jets and had championship games in 58 and 59. All that team was still there. And here I am, a rookie amongst all these stars, and I'm not going to go through all the names because I'm going to keep this a little short because I have a little more to say than I planned to. Anyway, Don Shula, my 3rd year in the league, kept me away from having another Super Bowl ring by beating us down in Miami 21-0. Upon that, the following year, the Baltimore Colts were actually decimated, and a new ownership took over. My team left, and I was left behind. My 2 years there, I was very unhappy. And I was happy that the Baltimore Colts at that time, which are the Indianapolis Colts, same ownership, sent me to Green Bay. Because in Green Bay, I had one of my finest years ever. And that was in the NFC conference. Well, lo and behold, I became a free agent. And I had to talk to Commissioner Tagliabue's office to get his advice on what the legalities were. I offered my services, first all back to the Green Bay Packers, then to the Miami Dolphins, then to the Atlanta Falcons, and the only one that could sign me was Al Davis from the Raiders. He had to make some concessions, but they weren't that big. Anyway, on my first year with the Raiders, I pulled a hamstring muscle. Not a hamstring, a groin muscle, excuse me, a little different. Anyway, what happened was that during that year, since I couldn't start the first game, although I did play on the specialty teams, I sat the bench after making 4 consecutive All-Pros. It was a very frustrating year for me, and I believe we played Pittsburgh that year, and they won the game. But the following year, we were the Super Bowl champs. And to mention all the Raider players, I'd take up too much time. You know the Hall of Famers, as Al mentioned. As my career went on, I finally got a starting job with the Raiders. I played a right linebacker. Then they switched me over to left linebacker. I finally made All-Pro again in my later years. And I recall a Monday night game against Pittsburgh. And Bradshaw was so courteous to me, he threw me 2 interceptions in that game, and we beat them in their hometown. Now, the Raiders love to come into a town such as Cleveland in one of our playoff games with 80,000 people booing us. We just love that. Well, I've never heard 80,000 people go silent on one play. And we intercepted the ball in the end zone, and we went on to win our Super Bowl again. To name the rivalries of the Raiders: the Miami Dolphins, first of all, the Kansas City Chiefs, but I'd gotten to the Raiders after that rivalry was concerned. Naturally, the Pittsburgh Steelers. We've always had a rivalry with our interconference games. Seattle Seahawks always gave us a problem. San Diego Chargers, Denver Broncos. Cleveland doesn't like us at all. New York Jets gave us a time, but they're still afraid of us. It seems like everybody is actually afraid to play us. And no, not afraid. It's just a rivalry we have between you. I have to mention a congratulatory note to my fellow enshrinees, and more than that, to the Hall of Famers that are already enshrined. And to go back through the history, this is the cream of the crop, and they show exactly what dignity and humanity and greatness is all about. Getting a little tongue-tied here. In closing, I'd like to say that the fans are the greatest part of football. And you give us the courage to go on and play to a point of excellence, and our desire to excellence. And as a matter of fact, our motto is a commitment to excellence. And I told Al one time that I should have been committed a long time ago. Thank you.
During the time that Dennis Fitzgerald served as an assistant defensive coach with both Kent State and the Pittsburgh Steelers, he tutored a superstar linebacker, and he is here today to present that linebacker, Jack Lambert, for induction into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Here is Dennis Fitzgerald.
Mr. Commissioner, Chairman Stu, presenters and inductees, and football people of all ranks and stations. My particular chore here today is a very easy one because I think my inductee fits this institution just like air to a football. Robert Service, the great poet of the Yukon, wrote words of, "There's a race of men that don't fit in," and I think if he were in Stark County today, he might change his words looking at these inductees to "There's a race of men that fit right in." Jack Lambert was born in neighboring Portage County, right up the road. Attending Crestwood High School, a quarterback no less. Went to Kent State University, and there from defensive end to middle linebacker where his football honors started to grow. He was drafted in 1974 in the second round by the Pittsburgh Steelers. His success was immediate. In his first year, he was Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was also an important contributor to the first of 4 Super Bowls that he was to obtain. He proceeded to add 9 consecutive Pro Bowl appearances, a record for NFL linebackers. In 1976 and 1979, he was voted the NFL's Defensive Player of the Year. He had 28 career regular season interceptions. He had 1,441 tackles. That's a lot of contact. He had complete mastery of his position, and he was a great cover linebacker, especially his middle linebackers run. But these things are not as important as what all of you up there identify with Jack Lambert. He was one intense, tough football player. When he called a defense in the huddle, there's 10 other defensive players knew damn well that defense was going to work. Jack Lambert was exciting to watch. He was a joy to coach, but he was a lousy buck euchre player. He is now retired to the hills of western Pennsylvania, where he and his lovely wife, Lisa, are raising 2 quarterbacks in dresses. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you number 58 of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the well behind the steel curtain, Jack Lambert.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's get this done. It goes without saying that to be inducted into the Pro Football Hall of Fame is the ultimate honor that a football player can receive. It should also go without saying that one does not come to stand on these steps without the guidance, the direction, and the support of others. In the short time that I am allotted today, I would like to publicly acknowledge and thank some of those people. I'd like to start with my mother, Joyce. When I was growing up, undoubtedly my biggest fan and supporter. I can't remember ever playing in an athletic event that my mother did not attend. I can still see my mom late at night down in the basement after a football game, scrubbing and soaking the dirt and grass stains out of my pretty white football pants. Mom thought it was very important that her son have the whitest pants on the field. Thank you, Mom, for all those special little things you did for me that I will never forget. My father, Jack, I get my athletic ability and my temperament from my father's side of the family. Most of the time we spent together was throwing a baseball back and forth or playing tackle football. Back before the days of NFL properties, my dad enjoyed buying football helmets and painting them the colors of NFL teams. The helmet he chose to paint for his own son at that time was a Pittsburgh Steelers helmet. Thank you, Dad. Looking back to my days of playing football, my teammates and I won a championship in high school, college, and the pros. In order to do that, you must have exceptional talent, but you must also have great coaching. Throughout my entire football career, I was truly blessed with that. My high school head coach was Jerry Myers. I went up to ask Coach Myers if I could wear the number 00. He said, Jack, that's a very special number. If you want 00, you have to be a very special player. And then he asked me if I had what it took. And I couldn't answer that question then, but I think I've answered it today. Thank you, Coach Myers. My head coach in college was Don James, the only Kent State coach to ever win a Mid-American Conference championship. And his record and the success that he is still enjoying today out in Washington speaks for itself. Thank you, Coach James. And of course, Chuck Noll, who will one day be standing on these very same steps to join Coach Landry and so many other great coaches before him.
And with all these fine head coaches, there was always one very special assistant coach that for one reason or another took me under his wing and always spent the extra time with me that was needed. In high school, it was Dean Ishida. Dean's here today. Thank you for coming, Dean. In college, it was Dennis Fitzgerald. And in the pros, it was Bob Widenhofer, who's now with the Detroit Lions. I could have chosen any one of these men to be my presenter today because they were all so instrumental in my success. But I chose Coach Fitzgerald because I thought he, more than anyone else, taught me the techniques and the fundamentals that I used throughout college and professional football. But maybe more importantly, he took a raw talent and a raw toughness in me, and he refined it into a mental discipline, a discipline that is necessary to excel. Thank you, Coach Fitzgerald. I would also like to thank the National Football League, an organization that enabled me to realize a boyhood dream, an organization that afforded me the opportunity to travel to Europe and Southeast Asia on USO tours with my good friend Billy Granholm, and an organization that has given me so many cherished memories and friendships. On the day I retired from pro ball, I made this statement: there is not an owner or a team or a coaching staff or a people in a city that I would rather have played for in the entire world. The kindness that Arthur J. Rooney and his family have shown me, and the kindness that the people in the city of Pittsburgh have shown me over the years, are kindnesses that I can never repay. 5 years later, I appreciate and stand by those words even more. How fortunate I was to have played for Art Rooney and his family. How fortunate to be associated with the entire organization. The front office people, the coaching staff, the medical staff, Dr. Best, Dr. Huber, Dr. Steele, the trainers, headed by Ralph Berlin and Bob Miley, who did their best to stitch me up and piece me together for 11 years. And the most important people in the organization, the locker room and equipment men, Jackie Hart, Tony Parisi, Rogers Freivogel, Frankie and Mike. I was so fortunate to have played on some of the greatest teams of all time, and arguably the greatest defense ever assembled. And finally, how fortunate I was to play for the Pittsburgh Steelers fans. A proud and hard-working people that love their football and their players. If I could start my life all over again, I would be a professional football player, and you damn well better believe I'd be a Pittsburgh Steeler. To my family, to my friends, to all my teammates from Crestwood and Kent State, to all of you fans out there who will never be in any Hall of Fame, at the risk of sounding a bit pretentious, I give this day to you. This is your day, and this is your Hall of Fame. I would like my wife, Lisa, and my daughters, Lauren and Elizabeth, to stand. There, ladies and gentlemen, is my Hall of Fame. Thank you. God bless.
In 1985, when Roger Staubach was elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, his coach, Tom Landry, presented him for enshrinement. Today, it is the great quarterback who has returned to Canton to present his good friend and trusted coach for Hall of Fame membership. Welcome, Roger Staubach.
Mr. Commissioner, Mr. Mayor, Hall of Fame Committee, Hall of Famers, old and new, and most importantly, you the fan that paved our parade route this morning and cheered in our stadiums. It's a pleasure to be here today. And I want to update you on the score. The Browns are winning 7-3. No, we have been up here a little long. I think our busts have gone out of style over there, but it's been worth every minute of it. And it's a privilege for me to be here on this important occasion on behalf of Tom Landry. On the stage, though, some memories were brought back that weren't all the best. Ray Nitschke knocked me out in my first game as a rookie for the Dallas Cowboys. And then there's Ham and Green and Swan and Lambert and Blunt and Harris. That's enough to ruin your day, I'll tell you that right there. I have had the feeling since I've been sitting there, there's probably a handful of you out there that are not Cowboy fans. That's the communists out there in the group, but it's a little over 20 years ago, a dream came true when I first stepped onto the field at Cowboy training camp as a rookie. 5 years ago, another dream came true when I stood before you as an inductee to this great Hall of Fame. My dreams and those of my teammates were fulfilled because of the efforts of one very special individual. Today I have the honor of representing the players of the Dallas Cowboys and presenting Coach Tom Landry into the NFL Hall of Fame. It's Tom Landry was able to put a football team on the field that won for 20 years in a row. It's unprecedented. It's an unprecedented feat in the National Football League, and one I don't believe will be duplicated again. You don't do that by accident. You do that because you know the game and you're a fierce competitor. But I don't want to get into statistics. In the brief few minutes that I have, I really wanted to try to capture the spirit of Tom Landry. And he's hard to classify. Not someone that fits the typical profile of a football coach. In fact, some might suggest that he's a man of contrasts. Someone whose public image doesn't always reflect his true character. For example, how can a nice, soft-spoken man, known for his fashionable tailoring on the sidelines, become a legend in one of the most physical, aggressive, action-oriented sports in the world? To watch his demeanor, both on and off the field, you would never expect that he was at home in a world of split-second execution and violent collisions. Folks might say that he's conservative, that he doesn't change much, and I guess there's some truth to that. He's a man of unwavering beliefs. His faith and his family have always been the foundation for his life. I guess if you know his wife, Alicia, it is a marriage that was made in heaven, if you want to get corny about a marriage. These values give him the confidence and inner strength to be one of the most persevering, dedicated men I've ever known. The self-discipline he developed along the way helped him to maintain balance in his life through good and bad times. He wanted to win as much as any human being or any coach or any player that ever played the game. But he could always put victory and defeat in their proper perspective. But while he might be conservative in some areas, let's all recognize that he was one of the most innovators and premier architects of the evolution in modern football. Cowboy teams became famous for their ability to innovate. Tom was always on the leading edge. He perfected multiple offensive sets, motion, and shifting before the snap. The flex defense forced opposing teams to radically change their offenses when we played. And the shotgun is now used by practically every team in the league. In the minds of knowledgeable football fans, Coach Tom Landry is recognized as a visionary who is always one step ahead of the crowd. People might point out that he is quiet, serious, reflective, almost shy. But that perspective alone doesn't capture the real Tom Landry. the one who has never turned down an autograph, the one who is extremely generous with his time and talent, the one who gives freely to community activities and civic causes, and has been the backbone in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. He's one of the most approachable folks you ever want to meet. Every now and then you'll hear a player who remarks one time when he smiled. But you've got to admit that any guy who does American Express commercials or pops out of a suitcase singing country and western songs can't be taking life too seriously. Those of you who have watched Coach Landry on the sidelines all those years might have formed an impression of him as an impassive or unemotional. The media play that up quite a bit. But the truth is that despite that cool outward appearance, Tom Landry is one of the most sensitive, caring individuals God ever put on this earth. And his sport is as tough as football can be, and Tom Landry is as tough as they can be. Tom's sincere desire to win was right at the top of his list. But he also cared for the individual and for the team, and that's what made him a winner. He agonized over tough decisions. You'll find that former players believe that Coach Landry made them better individuals. The high tribute we can offer is genuine respect. Tom Landry certainly earned that from the athletes he influenced in his 3 decades of coaching. He has also earned it off the field during a lifetime of giving and caring. So there are the contrasts that I've tried to put together, the spiritual side of Tom Landry, conservative yet innovative, quiet but generous and giving. He might have appeared somewhat distant, but he is always warm, compassionate, and understanding. Which is the real Tom Landry? They all are. He is exactly what he appears to be. There is no pretense in his style, no false images to maintain. His genuine nature and goodwill make him stand out as the individual unique in his time. Tom Landry defines the word class. In one of my weaker moments, I called Tom the man in the funny hat. Speaking for football fans across the country, we miss that image on Sunday afternoons. But we're thankful for the memories he has given us, for the grace and dignity he brought to our sport. He has touched all of us in a way few men could. I'm proud to consider him a friend. On behalf of all the players who have had the wonderful fortune to be coached by the very best, it is my pleasure to introduce Coach Tom Landry.
Thank you very much. I should have worn my hat today, and you'll recognize me if I'd had that hat on, I'm sure. But you know, they're taking bets whether or not I will show any emotion today, and the odds are very heavy that I won't. But you know, they told me this was going to be a great experience for me, and I haven't been here to introduce several players into the Hall of Fame. I thought I would handle it very well, but when you're on this side of it, it's a little bit different. It's really a thrill for me to be here, and if I don't show emotion, it's all on the inside, though. Because it makes it a little bit special today to have Roger Staubach, and present me for induction into the Hall of Fame. I could talk for hours about Roger Staubach, because he is probably, there's probably no peer for players who can win the game in the last minute or bring a team from behind as Roger did. When we show our highlight films, you can see what Roger has done, for the Dallas Cowboys. And as he said, he's representing the players that I've coached through the years. There's some of them here. I see Bob Brunick out here. I see Ed Jones out here. Drew Pearson's here. Also Robert Newhouse in there. Jethro Pugh. All those great guys that played for the Cowboys. And I know I missed some that are here, and I think Bob Brunick's here too. And I'm just delighted to have him here and all the other fans that are here today as well. I would like to recognize the enshrinees for the tremendous job they did in coming. They're all the players. I'm a coach. It makes a little difference, from a coaching standpoint to go in the NFL. I wish I'd have been a good enough player to go in as a player. Boy, that'd have been super. But I wasn't, unfortunately. I'm glad to be here, though, as a coach. But I had the pleasure of coaching against all these guys or playing against them. I coached 4 Super Bowls against 4 of them in the time, and I understand now why Pittsburgh beat us twice. Their whole team's going to be in the Hall of Fame before this thing's over with. But they were a great team, and they deserved it. Can you believe it? I played against Bob St. Clair. That ages us both, you know, as a player. When they told me that he ate raw meat for his pregame meal, I didn't want to even get close to him because I didn't know what would happen there. But boy, he was a great player, and I'm just delighted to go in with these guys. Of course, the selection committee, if they hadn't selected me, I wouldn't be here. And I would surely like to thank the Hall of Fame and their selection committee for inviting me to be a part of this great, great Hall of Fame. You know, it's hard to say all the people who help you and name all of them that help you be successful. Of course, the ones that are most important to me is my family. You know, in the coaching business, it's very tough. Your family is so important to you. And I want to introduce my family very quickly. My wife, Alicia, the beautiful gal right here that's standing. My son, Tom Jr. My oldest daughter, Kitty. Come on, Kitty, stand up and let's see how pretty you are, gal. Come on. Lisa, my other daughter. Tremendous. And my sister's here, too. Ruthie, why don't you stand up? She is great to have her here. There's two people that are not here today that would have loved to have been there, and that was my parents. They both passed away in the 70s. My dad had a chance to see us win our last Super Bowl against Denver. He's a great sports fan, and he enjoyed it so very much. You know, it's amazing how, as we get older, we understand how important the family is. And I'm just glad that God gave me such a great mother and dad. It made a lot of difference in my life. You know, others who have made a great impact in my life, I think probably the one man that made a great difference was my coach in junior high and high school. I only had one coach when I was in junior high and high school. He graduated from San Marcos and came to Mission, Texas to coach me when I was a junior in high school. And then as I moved up to become a senior in high school, he moved up as a head coach. But he taught me a lot about football. He taught me the fundamentals. He taught me values. He taught me to pay a price, you know, to win. And he contributed greatly to my success. And I'm talking about all the coaches, all the junior high and senior high coaches in America, what an impact they have really on the youth of America, where we need the impact today. It was a pleasure for me really to play for really only two teams. I went up with the New York Yankees in the All-American Conference, and I was there for only 1 year before they folded in the NFL. And then I went to the New York Giants, the Mara family, which really meant a lot to me personally. The Mara family, the Hallis family, you know, the Rooney family, they're the heart of the NFL. And to be a part of that team and see the type of family atmosphere that they had. We didn't always agree, but we were like most families, we could always make up. But I had the chance to play, I had the chance to be a player coach for them, and then a defensive coach. And those were the days when I first came up, we didn't even have television. Can you believe it? The television was not there in 1949, 50, in the early 50s. But I went in, when I coached all the way through the 50s with the New York Giants in there, I had Vince Lombardi and myself. We coached. Vince handled the offense, I handled the defense for the Giants until he went to Green Bay. And we had some great teams with the Mara family. Wellington and Ann Mara, probably here today. They're one of my best friends today. But as I moved into the Cowboys, the Dallas Cowboys, I had the real pleasure to have an owner by the name of the late Clint Murkison, who was very special in our whole setup. Clint Murkison, who took over the Cowboys in 1960 and who was with us until he passed away recently in there, he never once criticized me or second-guessed me in the whole time that I was with the Dallas Cowboys. I remember after the 1963 team, we had only won 5 games after 4 years at any one season. And everybody called a press conference, and I remember we went to the press conference and everybody said, well, Landry's gone. Well, Clint walked in and says, I'm going to give him a 10-year contract with 1 year left. Now that's loyalty and that's support. And I believe that Clint Murkison was probably the one person that enabled us to go 20 years with winning season, because he took the pressure off of me, took the pressure off of Tex Schramm, and took the pressure off the organization. And that's what makes great teams and great dynasties. And it was really a pleasure for me to have that. Others in the Dallas Cowboys, Tex Schramm was a tremendous organizer, he's contributed greatly to the NFL in so many ways, and he was largely responsible for our organization. Gil Brandt, who was the other one that came in at the same time, his scouting, helped us tremendously in the early years as we developed as a football team. And that was very important to me personally. Of course, the last year has been a very, very interesting year for me. I got fired, and I'm in the Hall of Fame this year, all in 1 year. So you coaches, remember, there's always good things at the end of the rainbow if you stick at it. But I think my coaching staff is another reason that we were very successful. I had coaches that coached with me for 29 years. Jerry Tubbs did. I had Jim Myers and Irma Allen who coached with me for almost 25 years. I had Gene Stallings for 14 years. Danny Reeves came up as a player and went all the way through and coached for me, went on to Denver in there. Of course, Mike Ditka did the same thing. He came to us and as a player, and now he's coaching the Bears. And all these guys were with me more than 15 years as coaches. And that's what made the Cowboys, what they were. I had a great time in the NFL. I think after the 40 years I've been in it, I've spanned almost the whole gauntlet from failure to success in the NFL. Because when we were back in the 50s in there with no television in there, Bob St. Clair was overpaid. I don't think I made $5,500 in those days to play the game in there. But that's what it was all about. But I saw the marriage of television and the National Football League. And that was the greatest marriage that ever happened in the late 50s. Because from that spawned the American Football League and expanded what we have today in the National Football League. And I just hope that the National Football League will continue to build on the great foundation that has been created by the Rooneys and the Hallises and all the rest and all these Hall of Fame guys, because they've made it possible. And I think the game will continue on. It's a great pleasure for me to come in to the Hall of Fame. Never thought I'd make it, but sure glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Going to ask the audience to remain where you are just a couple of minutes as we introduce and bring up here the immediate families of these enshrinees and presenters. First, for enshrinee Bob St. Clair, wife Marcia, and children Lynn, Gary, Gail, Greg, Renee, and Jill. And for presenter Dave Baronio, wife Kay. For enshrinee Buck Buchanan, wife Georgia, and children Nicole, Eric, and Dwayne. Mother and father, Mr. and Mrs. Wallace Buchanan. For presenter Hank Stram, wife Phyllis. For enshrinee Bob Griese, children Scott, Jeff, and Brian, and mother Ida. And for presenter Don Shula, wife Dorothy. For enshrinee Franco Harris, wife Dana, son Doc, and mother Gina. And for enshrinee Ted Hendricks, children Mark, Michael, and Christina, and mother Angela. For enshrinee Jack Lambert, wife Lisa, children Lauren and Elizabeth, mother Joyce, and father Jack. And for presenter Dennis Fitzgerald, wife Elizabeth. And for enshrinee Tom Landry, wife Alicia, children Tom Jr., Lisa, and Kitty. And for presenter Roger Staubach, wife Marianne. And now again, to honor this great country of ours, I ask that, well, most of you are standing, but ask all of you to stand and join with Marge Gentler in the singing of God Bless America.
God bless America. Come on. Land that I love, stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 1990 Enshrinement ceremonies are over. Thanks for listening at home. Thanks to the thousands of you here for attending. Have a great time. If you're going to the ball game, drive safely. Thank you.